Okay, so as Eileen mentioned, we have a fair amount of challenges in Collier County with respect to both hunger and homelessness. The coalition, our role is to help coordinate activities, both grant funding as well as strategic planning to help prevent and end homelessness and hunger in our community. We have another role in the community, which is primarily our strategic planning side, which helps the continuum of care. In other words, all the participating agencies that deal with both hunger and homelessness in our community, collaborating on solutions to help prevent and end homelessness. And we are responsible for leading that continuum of care. And so we help to facilitate today. There's about 152 programs that are engaged in our continuum of care across Collier County. Those programs are inputting into what's called our homeless management information data system. And they're putting in not only homeless records, but records of those who are at risk of homelessness. And so today we have about 276,000 records. Now, why did I put that in there? Well, those records, those 276,000 records have been solely accumulated since March of 2017. And so we see a really strong need for folks who are not only seeking affordable housing, exiting from homelessness, but also, as Eileen said, supportive services that go along with that. So some of our community partners, of course, are folks like Meals of Hope, Mr. Popper, David Lawrence Center, and a plethora of other agencies across the continuum of care. We also help in a partnership with the Collier Resource Center to fund what's called a coordinated entry. In other words, we as agencies refer folks to Nina Gray's organization to help take in the data into our system and then make appropriate referrals. And they do approximately 120 referrals every month for folks who are in crisis mode. In addition to that, they also do a plethora of other services there, but the coalition helps to organize a lot of that information, that data, and then relate that back out to the entire continuum of care as well as our funders. Hunger coordination in our community is done, again, by a plethora of agencies. Stephen Popper, who you're going to hear from in this presentation this morning, is one of the lead agencies in hunger prevention in our community, does a fantastic job. We work with Stephen on coordinating activities, identifying things like food deserts in our community, and then his organization, along with several others, step in and fill those gaps where people are not receiving services, and he'll talk about some of that in his presentation. But I just wanted to put this slide up to show you that during the pandemic, just folks who were in our homeless information system, there was 104,553 clients that received emergency food relief. Now, that doesn't include the entire data network that Stephen has or some of the other pantries that are non-participants in our system, but it definitely points to a strong need. I mean, we're seeing an increase year to year, and then of course dramatically last year with the pandemic for things like emergency food relief. We've been able to do some additional coordination for hunger relief with our county sheriff's department. Kevin Rambusk has done a terrific job of helping us with some of the deputies that are assisting with emergency food delivery to folks who are in dire need, as well as Captain Tony Morrow, who works with county EMS. Those folks have just been terrific, and they're doing field investigation reports and then letting us know, hey, listen, these folks have a can of tuna in their cupboard, and that's it. And so we're able to get that information, telemetry it around, and get it to the pantries to do supportive work. The other thing that the coalition does alongside of our community food banks and partnerships is to help provide them technologies. So we have been able to provide some of our food pantries with new technologies through grants that we go out and seek from either the Department of HUD, DCF, and or our private funders like our First Responder Community Foundation here in Collier County. They've done a terrific job with helping us to be able to help support the infrastructure work that goes into what the food pantries are working to achieve. So I wanted to point to really quickly two stories that we've been engaged in just in the last month. We have Milton. Milton has been chronically homeless on the streets for about 15 years. In fact, that was the first time when you see him waving at us there, that was the first time we engaged him a little over a year ago, just prior to the pandemic. We worked with Milton to get him access to his actual retirement benefits. He didn't have access to a Social Security retirement. We got him connected to that, connected to housing, And then you see him in the far picture today where he actually got his driver's license back. And Milton now is working with the Salvation Army in a peer-to-peer mentorship program. So he's a real amazing success story, somebody who's battled homelessness for a long time and coming out of it. The other is Marie. She's a senior citizen female. And one of the things that we've noticed in Collier is the dramatic increase of senior citizen females, particularly who are experiencing homelessness. Marie was one of them. She came to this country about 40 years ago, experienced a relatively good life, had good employment. Her family unit broke down. She went to live with her son, who was experiencing PTSD from the military. He could no longer support her. And so she ended up in her car in the streets. And we were able to, through the support of the Women's Foundation of Collier County, scoop her back up out of her car and get her into an efficiency. And the picture you see there today is her holding on to one of her grandchildren back in her efficient unit. So housing for her was a definite critical path. Let me see here. So in 2020, during the pandemic, we were able to rehouse, through the assistance of the community foundations here, 13 senior citizen females. 112 children were kept from homelessness. 58 were rehoused from homelessness itself. 8 veterans were rehoused, and we were able to keep 11 more veterans out of homelessness in our partnership with Wounded Warriors and with the Veterans Administration. And if you look at that 290 households served is in comparison to 2019, where we served about 168 households that were experiencing homelessness. Philanthropy was the direct result of our ability to serve more, which was just truly remarkable. Today, we have on average of about 600 folks who are experiencing homelessness in the camps around our county, from Naples, Golden Gate out to Immokalee. We have an outreach coordinator who gets out and engages with all of them as best we can week to week and try to get them attached to resources. We also have more than 1,000 children who are experiencing homelessness in our school district. Those are children that are actually registered in school. That doesn't include their siblings that may also be experiencing homelessness. One of the concerns that we have is the growing trend of senior homelessness, not only in Collier County, but around our nation. From 2017 to 2019, we had an average increase of homelessness amongst our senior population of about 18%. This last year, we had a 33% spike in senior homelessness, which is terribly concerning. And then we looked to a study that was done in 2020, a collaborative study amongst several universities. And this is showing the trend of senior homelessness. The orange line here is the senior homelessness in the southern part of our country. And so you can see where that's actually outpacing even homelessness around other parts of our nation. And so we know we have things to address. We address that through our Continuum of Care strategic plan, along with our community funders, in order to be able to alleviate a lot of that. So what are some solutions here? Your time, talent, and treasure invested with the community foundation here, bringing forth additional resources and opportunities for those so that we can exit them out of homelessness or keep them housed when they're at risk. Awareness is a big thing for us. Understanding who the faces of homelessness really are. We serve everybody from the unaccompanied youth at 15, 16 years of age living in the camps to our oldest served to date has been 92 years old living in the homeless camps. And so, we have a broad spectrum of who is experiencing that. The Continuum of Care will continue to strategically plan for the capacity development of programs. And what that means is that today, if the federal government were to say, we're going to give you $10 million, what would you do with it? We have to have a plan ready to do things like that, to be able to go after funding, to bring more solutions and more things like affordable housing into our community. So we're working to constantly align our local initiatives with state and federal funding resources. And then we always want homelessness in any case to be rare, brief, and hopefully only one time. And that's kind of the motto that we've been using, is that folks need to have that either prevented, if at all case, or solved very, very quickly. And we know that we can do this. We've got a proven track record of doing this, and we do it because of the relationships we have in our community today. So with that, my portion is done. I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Kirk, who is president of the Rural Neighborhoods.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Let me see if I can do the tech thing at the same time here. My name is Steve Kirk. I'm president of Rural Neighborhoods. Okay. There we go. Rural Neighborhoods' mission is to build livable places for working families. We stress livable places because the work that we do really isn't just bricks and mortar. Excuse me, slideshow went the wrong direction here.
Unknown caller.
I apologize. We're really talking about a home. We're talking about a livable place. It's not just bricks and mortar. I would ask everyone with us this morning to go back into your mind's eye and remember the home that you grew up in or the home that you were an adolescent. Because home, as many of the persons that we work with, the families that we serve, talk about, it's their future. It's the place where they come home to from school and do their homework. It's where they gather around a kitchen table. My favorite is one of our clients that it's the place you can cook breakfast in your pajamas. But it's a place that you feel is your place, that you're nestled with your family. Our work in Collier County is really a variety of solutions. We're pleased to work with one of the most innovative foundations in the nation. In the aftermath of Hurricane Andrew, the Community Foundation and we collaborated to help 75 people repair their homes in the aftermath of the storm, helping them with insurance deductibles, replacing roofs, putting windows back into homes. It was an incredible effort countywide that really made a difference in the lives of Collier residents. We also construct rental housing. We develop 7 rental communities in Collier today. We have 317 units in which 1,000 people go home to each night. And the alternative to the work that we do is in places like Immokalee, where 1 in 4 families go home to dilapidated trailers. So there's a true alternative between what we offer and what sometimes is the home or the house or the dilapidated trailer that others have to go home to. When you're shelling out most of your paycheck just to keep a roof over the head, what's left in your wallet? If we're unable to solve the housing solution and the affordability solution, the other problems that the Community Foundation, you and we will be forced to solve are going to be more hunger, more homelessness, more healthcare problems where people have to choose between rent and prescriptions. Our seniors are one of the most vulnerable populations falling through the cracks. Many of them have had wonderful lives. They've worked hard. They're collecting Social Security, but sometimes their homes fall apart around them. We continually work year after year to help someone fix the septic system in their yard or to repair the hole in their floor because on their fixed incomes, they can't do that. So helping seniors repair their home is part of the housing effort that the Community Foundation in Rural Neighborhoods is engaged in. 13% of our veterans they're 13% of all the veterans are 13% of all the people who are homeless in the country. It's a special population suffering from many times from PTSD, from a lack of benefits. Providing housing to veterans is critical. And in Collier, 2 out of 5 households pay more than 30% of their income on rent, and half of these pay more than half their income on rent. As I said, if you're paying that much to keep a roof over your head, how can you meet the other needs? One of the most interesting projects, most innovative projects in the country, Eileen announced at the beginning, is our work together at the Golden Gate Golf Course, in which, in a partnership that's really truly unique, the county, the foundation community, and Rural Neighborhoods intends to build 350 plus homes for who we consider to be the essential personnel in our community. 100 of those units will go towards seniors, to people who are looking for an affordable place to be the most likely the last place they reside in their lives. But 250 or more of these units are going to go to teachers, healthcare personnel, police, and firefighters, the people that we need in our community to maintain the quality of life in Collier. And unfortunately, 1/3 of our workforce drive 30 minutes every day, and almost 2 in 10 come from another county to Collier. And unfortunately, the experience in our community is that we find wonderful teachers who want to come and teach in Collier schools, but after a year or 2 years of commuting, decide it's simpler to teach in Bonita Springs than in Collier. The Golden Gate Golf Course is going to provide us an opportunity to be able to provide affordable housing for young career persons and sometimes older career people who want to remain teaching and providing nursing care in Collier County. This is a small diagram of that project. And what's wonderful to understand, I think, the advantage of giving in the arena of housing is how we leverage funds. In this instance, we have Collier County providing us land at no cost, land that they've acquired and repurposing the Golden Gate Golf Course. We have foundations who are committed to a $10 million philanthropic match. But that land and that $10 million is going to leverage $70 million more in debt capital and equity capital from investors. So think of it, we're not necessarily having to raise the money to build an entire home or entire campus or an entire community. We simply need to raise that gap financing that allows us to leverage traditional means of building homes and building livable places for working families. I wanted to talk about why to donate just briefly to housing type of projects. Be this the repair to a senior home, be this to a gap financing for a rental community in Immokalee, or for essential personnel in Golden Gate. We could help seniors age in place for the remainder of their lives through giving towards owner-occupied repairs. We could provide money towards a fund to help people with emergency assistance that would prevent eviction, to keep someone from being homeless. We could underwrite the gap between what a market rate rent might be and what an affordable rent might be. Just to use an example, in Immokalee, we provide a rental housing that is less expensive than the dilapidated trailers. Unfortunately, the dilapidated trailers survive because families double up and triple up in those homes and share the rent, where we provide housing that may cause a person to pay 30% of their rent towards income. That might only be a rent of $300 if you're a farm worker who makes $18,000 a year. So the difference between market and affordable is that gap that giving sometimes solves. We can make communities livable. Giving towards housing also means helping us buy a tot lot for a community that makes that community not just average, but exceptional. And so we think that giving leverages a gift. This is an arena in which we don't require 100% donor support. Our housing gifts, your housing gifts, are highly leveraged. And as I said, one of our mantras among our staff is that we can make neighborhoods exceptional by being 103 or 105% of the funding. To have the things like a community garden, to have tot lots, to have computer rooms for the children at the end of the day. We can do many things that makes a place truly livable, truly exceptional, and not just ordinary. And housing is an opportunity for recognition, in a sense that there are certainly naming rights that go with many of the structures that we build, many of the opportunities to build, even the tot lots that we install. But most important, I think I would leave you with, is that housing strategies are self-sustaining. It doesn't require giving year after year. It's a capital investment in the construction of a project or in the repair to a senior's home. Because if we have a rental community, in the end, the rents themselves will sustain the community in perpetuity. We're good stewards. All of us are good stewards that work with the Community Foundation. We set up reserves to deal with replacement needs in housing. And so again, we're really pleased to be working with one of the most exceptional and innovative foundations in trying to address the housing needs. Thank you. With that, Steve Popper.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all. Let me see if I can get my screen up as well. Good. Hopefully you can all see that now. Let me start by telling you a little bit about Meals of Hope. We started the organization.
We can't see your presentation.
You need to hit share.
Hold on a second. Try that one more time. So I hit the share screen. You know, we tried this beforehand.
Did you want me to share for you?
Sure, why don't you do that if you would? So if you can just put up just the first one, it's fine. So again, thank you very much. And certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. I'd like to just kind of start and tell you a little bit about Meals of Hope. We started in 2007, and we started as a meal packing organization. And since then, we've grown to be the largest food pantry provider in Southwest Florida. We have a three-pronged approach to combating hunger in our community, where we pack food throughout Southwest Florida and the United States. This is a social enterprise for us. We've developed 5 different meals. And when we pack in, for example, Michigan, the food stays in Michigan, but the revenue comes back to allow us to help feed our neighbors in Collier County. We operate 13 to 14 food pantries each week, and we give food to between 3,300 and 4,000 families each week. We have a number of out-of-school programs as well. We do a backpack program where we give food every Friday to some 550 students throughout the school year. Our backpack program, we feel, is highly, highly nutritious. Children are given 2 breakfasts, 2 lunch, 2 dinners, snack, fruit, and milk. Well, 1 second, just leave it right there if you would. And they're given additional food for the rest of the family. And then we also supply breakfast, lunch, and dinners to Grace Place, the Naples YMCA, the Marco YMCA, for between 2 to 250 children 7 days a week. The reality is that families in our community are hurting, and unfortunately will be hurting for the foreseeable future. But fortunately, the amount of food pantries and the available food has increased since this time last year. Last year at this time, Meals of Hope was supplying about 1,200 families, and today we're supplying between 3,300 and 4,000 families. We all work hard to collaborate. No one food pantry provider can take care of our community. When we have extra food, we deliver it to smaller pantries. There have been additional food pantries that have opened up this year or last year because of the pandemic. Our Daily Bread, St. Matthew's House, and Meals of Hope have all increased the amount of food or of locations. When we look at food pantries, we want to look at the demographics. And one of the simplest ways to look at the demographics is we look at the Collier County school system. And as you can see, there's 47,000 children who go to school in our community. And of that, 30,000 or 65% of the population is listed as economically needy. You go to the next slide. What we like to do is we like to take a look at the elementary schools. And there are 32 elementary schools. And of those 32, we've arbitrarily taken 65, any school that has a 65% population or greater that participate in the free and reduced breakfast and lunch program. To participate in that, you need to be economically needy to qualify. And for that, a family of 4, in order to participate in the free and reduced breakfast and lunch program, have to earn $48,470 or less. To put that in perspective, that's one earner earning $23.30 an hour, or really more realistically, that's one caregiver that works 40 hours a week and another caregiver that has a part-time job working 20 hours a week, and each of them earning $15.50 an hour. 65% of the Collier County school households meet that demographic. So when you look at those 32 schools, and if you turn to the next slide, if you would, we looked at the ones that have a 65% or greater needer. There are 23 schools, and those 23 schools have an economically needy population of 86%. So where do we go from there and looking at where do food pantries go? So if you go to the next slide, what we do, and I think everyone has, and all food pantry providers have tried to figure out where to open up food pantries. So what we've done is we've taken the school zones for the elementary schools, and we then overlaid on top of that existing food pantries. And then it shows, as you can see, some huge gaps in our community where there is no food assistance. Michael talked a little bit about some food desert in our community. That is in fact true. So if you take a look at that map, the center part of that map is Golden Gate Estates. There were 0 food pantries in there. Immokalee, up at the top right-hand corner of that map, you can see that all the food pantries are right in the center of Immokalee, but none on the outskirts. So what we did is we took that and we opened up food pantries in that. And as an example, we have food pantries in the estates. We have 2 of them at Big Cypress and Village Oaks, Big Cypress and out in Oilwell, and also in the eastern part of Immokalee. Just those 3 represented over 900 to 1,000 families coming to our food pantries each and every week. Go to the next slide, if you would, please. So where do families find help? And so on Meals of Hope, we have a Find a Food Pantry map. And if you click on that and then go to the next slide, if you would, we have an interactive map that anyone can access. And what you can do is you can, all food pantries are listed within our community. And if you hover over one of those red dots, it will give you the information of that specific food pantry, when they're open, where, and what the name is. You can also type in where you're located, and that shows our address as an example, and it shows all the food pantries that are within 5 miles to us. You can actually go even further, and it will give you directions to those food pantries. You go to the so that's a really important tool for people that are food insecure. This picture here shows pre-COVID how we operated our food pantry. They were walk up and people shop for food assistance. Unfortunately, if you go to the next picture, what we've been forced to do, as all food pantries have done, is we've converted our food pantries to a drive-up situation where people drive up, the food is then opened up into their cars, and then they drive away. We've been very fortunate this year with food, or last year with food. The Community Foundation with Collier Cares was extraordinarily generous to the food pantries, and allowed us to buy a significant amount of food. Unfortunately, most of that food has already been distributed. The question that we have for this year is what's going to happen, and are there going to be shortages? Because we were able to participate in the Collier Cares program, that negated us and many food pantry providers to participate in the next round of the PPP program. Some of the government programs out there that were out there last year, such as an EIDL loan program, is not available again this year. So the need has continued to grow. People are out there. Typically, a family that goes to any food pantry is getting frozen meat, fresh produce, canned goods, dry goods. We distribute adult incontinence product, diapers, and feminine hygiene products at our pantries as well. We feel that we are the grocery stores to many of these families, and as do all food pantries. We encourage all of our families to come each and every week. We feel that a family that comes to our pantries, we typically get about $100 worth of groceries each time they come. It works out to be, if you figure that we're open 48 times a year, that they're saving almost $5,000 of their after-tax income, where they can then work with and use that money towards housing, transportation, and what have you. We live in such a generous community, and we all collaborated, and the Community Foundation has done such a great job of working with Meals on Hope and all food pantries. But we're concerned. Are people having COVID fatigue? They gave last year. They need to continue. The need is still out there, and will be for the foreseeable future. I'd like to just end with one story that I get choked up telling you this story, and that is, remember one time going at our food pantry at the Naples YMCA. A woman was going in and to pick up her children, and she was looking at us, didn't say a word, and she just looked and wanted to see what we were doing. And she came out with 2 young children in each of her hands. Continued to look at us as she walked by, but fortunately she stopped, turned around and said, "What are you doing?" And we told her that this was a food pantry and that anyone who needs food assistance is more than welcome to get some food. And she broke down crying. She said, "You don't understand. I did not know how I was going to feed my 2 children tonight." That's the reality in Collier County. We're so generous, but the need continues to grow. Thank you very much. That concludes my time period, and I'll open it back up for anyone that has questions.
Back, I'm on a webinar, sorry.
Thank you all for those terrific presentations. I have been monitoring the chat for questions, so thank you all for submitting those. The first question I have could be really for any of the speakers. You all mentioned that the senior population is particularly vulnerable in Collier County as it relates to hunger and housing. So as this population continues to grow in our county, how do we keep up with their needs in order to prevent them from becoming hungry or homeless?
Well, I would just say from a homelessness perspective, one of the things that we have to, I think, as a community, do a better job on is educating those that are widowers or widows. A lot of them don't know how to manage their finances once their significant other has passed away. And that has created, for us, a lot of folks, a lot of senior, particularly females, who are living in their cars. I think, as Stephen just mentioned, there's also some COVID fatigue going on. There's an increase in domestic violence in our community, and we're seeing some of that as a result of seniors being displaced out there. So I think from our perspective, it's education and awareness to talk about resources that are available. A lot of the folks that we engage just don't know that there are those resources out there to help them through financial education and potential housing resources.
In regards to hunger, we just continue to open up more pantries. We also work hard to make sure that we treat the families that are coming to our food pantries as customers. We encourage them to come every week and come get food assistance. There's no shame. We try to treat them. We're the grocery stores for them, and that's terribly important. We're there. We get to know our families very, very well, and we try to leave everyone saying thank you and see you next week, and tell your neighbors. That's really that wonderful neighborhood feeling by helping our neighbors in need.
And I would add from the housing perspective that when we find a senior whose house is sometimes crumbling around them, repairing that home is really important to everyone, to the residents' self-esteem and their sense of self-worth. But I think as we, as a housing group, leaves, it's our responsibility then to coordinate with other foundation partners, to understand that if that person's house has begun to fall apart around them, other things in their lives are falling apart around them as well. And so it really is, I think, incumbent upon those of us who work in this arena to coordinate with each other so someone can do a home visit.
Mm-hmm.
We save our nation a great deal of money if people can live at home instead of being in a nursing home. We do have people who cannot live independently. That's where the senior living at the Golden Gate Golf Course and this unique partnership we talked about will help, because those folks will have a senior facility, but they'll also be part of an intergenerational community in which there are others, if they want to get engaged with some of the children in their community, they'll have a chance to use that to enhance their lives. So it's a comprehensive approach to keep our seniors enjoying their aging years. But I think because each of us here and many, many more are part of a community foundation partnership, that allows us to coordinate.
Terrific, thank you. And then this question is for you, Michael, I would imagine. You spoke about several senior women. I think you said almost 70 senior women are homeless or living in their cars. So what is your plan to address those senior women and how to house them? And then what do you do to follow up once they're housed to ensure they stay that way?
Well, again, ideally we try to, get resources out to those folks who are most at risk to try and keep them stably housed before they fall into homelessness. We know that prevention costs are far less expensive than rapid rehousing costs once a person enters the homeless system of care. But when they do, we engage them through our outreach program, and that becomes an immediate continuum of care project. And so we identify their crisis needs. For some folks, resolving their housing immediately is not the first step. For some of them, it may be connectivity to David Lawrence Center or to St. Matthew's House or to, one of the many other programs that are in the continuum of care that can provide transitional housing while that person gets connected to additional resources. The coalition is also working with a program called SOAR, S-O-A-R, which is training case managers in Collier County on how to access benefits, particularly Social Security disability and Social Security supplemental income, to get seniors attached to resources that they may not have had previously. We have a fair amount of folks, as we all know, who are immigrants into our community, and a lot of them don't have natural benefits that this country would have afforded through either work credits, but they're here and we have to address their homelessness. And so we do that really on a case-by-case basis. We create an intake assessment for every client and prioritize their needs based on what they're telling us, and then get them connected to the resource with an ultimate goal always of ending their homelessness. We track, as I was asked, we track, how do you know how well you're doing? And what do? We follow up with our clients on 3, 6, and 12 months to ensure that they're still living in a stable environment. We're required to do that as a community. And as a community, one of the things that I'm really proud to say is for all those programs out there, so whether it's us or Salvation Army or Catholic Charity, whatever, providing either homeless prevention assistance or rapid rehousing assistance, this community has a 98% success rate of keeping people housed once they're permanently housed. And that's remarkable. And we track that 98% over the last 2 years. Every 2 years, we're always looking at our data. No, not every 2 years, every year we're looking at our data, but we go back as far as 2 years to ensure that the trends that we're seeing in front of us are the actual true data trends. And again, this community has done a fantastic job. Once it's resourced, it does the job that it should be doing as an entire continuum.
Great. I am happy to keep going with questions, but I also just wanted to give a second for any of you to unmute yourselves and ask a question yourself. Any takers? Okay, I will keep going. Kathleen Kircher is wondering, how does rural neighborhoods work with Habitat for Humanity?
That's a wonderful question, and Habitat is a wonderful partner. If you think about what Habitat traditionally does, Habitat helps a person become a first-time home buyer. So there's really no overlap in terms of what we do and what Habitat does. They help the person become a home buyer and they create home ownership. In contrast, we're working with those families who need an affordable rental unit, an affordable rental place to live. And so we're the stepping stone of where you rent first and then eventually, hopefully, become a homeowner and move on. Just as an example, in Eden Park, a very poor neighborhood in Immokalee. Habitat has built several home ownership communities, and where we, sometimes within 100 yards or sometimes within a very near distance, operate several rental communities. But we coordinate and have our programs in our lab. So for example, if you rent with us in Immokalee and you become a first-time home buyer, we take 5% of the rent that you've paid us, perhaps over the past 2 years, perhaps over the past 8 years, and give that to you as a down payment for your house as you move into Habitat.
Hmm.
In the interim, Habitat and we both sometimes identify homes in that neighborhood. And so we work together to revitalize that neighborhood and repair some of those homes in which owner-occupied people already own a home, maybe a mobile home, and we help to repair those homes. So it's a very integrated coordination between their organization and ours. And together, as I said before, our mission is to create livable places, not just a livable apartment. And so together, in that instance, we're really trying to change the neighborhood as much as we're trying to change the individual family.
Mhm. Great, thank you. Jen Walker is wondering, Meals of Hope, are you the only provider of food for the pantries you serve, or are there other providers there as well collaborating with you?
So it is all about collaboration. Meals of Hope gets our food from food banks that are in our communities. That's the Harry Chapin Food Bank and Midwest Food Bank. They're like the wholesaler, and we're the retailer. And that goes with all food pantries, such as our Daily Bread. I think Donna's on the, or we have someone from them on the phone as well. But so all food pantries, we get food through from the food banks. We go to grocery stores such as and pick up food that is wonderful food, but is getting short dated. And unfortunately, we go out and purchase food as well. And again, through Collier Cares and the Community Foundation, we ended up buying about $1.2 million worth of food last year just with that program.
Great, thank you. From Mark Schwab, he says that we often read about new towns being created in Collier County. And he's wondering, are there any requirements included to have more affordable housing as part of the new development?
Fewer than we would like. I think it's important to understand beyond the service work that the foundation and Rural Neighborhoods and others in this group do, we're also advocates within the community. And the Community Foundation, together with other foundations, put together an affordable housing study, an affordable housing plan. Both the foundation, ourselves, Habitat as well, work with local government to try to suggest policies that would make affordable housing more prevalent. One of the goals is at some point to have what's called inclusionary zoning, in which one might have 8% of all new units in a community that a developer builds be affordable. Unfortunately, it is not in many communities, it's not a politically feasible choice at this time. But I think it's important for those of you who are listeners today to understand that there is advocacy work being done on the policy part by both the foundation and its recipients to try to shape that. And there is increasing interest from our elected officials in affordable housing. County government, for example, is deeply invested in providing land from the Golden Gate Golf Course to our essential personnel and senior initiative. So we have a long distance to go. There's some progress. Mark's suggestion is a great suggestion, one that many of us would like to see adopted, but we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to say, I think the commissioners are very aware of this problem and are looking at it. There is another development that I read about in the paper, but I know the chamber's been talking about. I think it's 225. It'll be low-income housing units. I don't think it's rental. I think it's purchase. So I think that's going to happen. And the city has been looking at the Gordon River apartments and what's going on there and what they might be able to do to rebuild those for low income. So, I mean, people are looking at it, but proportionately, those are not the units being built necessarily in Collier County.
Mhm.
Well, and Eileen, if I could, I would just say that, every year we're required to do what's called a homeless point in time count. We do that at the end of January. And it's basically meant to be a 1-day snapshot of homelessness in Immokalee and a 1-day snapshot in the balance of our county here. And, for the last several years, we've had both city and county commissioners attend those things. This past one, we had Rick Lacasio and Andy Solis attend. And they are deeply committed to understanding, the opportunities that this community faces with regard to homelessness. And that is truly encouraging in and of itself to see.
Mhm. Michael, do you think we're looking at a forever problem, or what's your forecast in terms of the progress that we can make in this area? This is a question from John Levy.
Yeah, so the other day I actually put on our social media platform that we have a mission in front of us, and it is a mission to end senior homelessness. That's a tough word when you put end in there anywhere. Most communities will put to prevent and end homelessness. But we have certain segments of our homeless population that we can bring an end to. It's not insurmountable. We're not LA with 30,000 homeless living on their streets. We have, again, our senior population of homelessness is somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 folks. Our veteran homelessness is somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 35 folks. These are attainable numbers. We can certainly get folks connected to housing resources and work to greatly reduce and hopefully end those numbers. Now, we're always going to have homelessness in our community for a variety of reasons, whether they're economic, social, whether they become homeless through a variety of addiction issues or mental health issues. So we'll always have that. But I think here's the thing. The continuum is at its best when it responds very quickly and makes that occurrence very brief. There's also a lot less cost to the community when those experiences are brief. We tracked one chronically homeless guy for a year, and his community-based cost, in other words, cost to the ERs in the mental health crisis unit in our community, was about $43,000. Now, it would have cost us about $8,800 just to permanently house him. So, again, for us, if we can make that occurrence very either non-existent or very brief in its nature, we have a greater opportunity to put an end to homelessness for a variety of populations.
Mhm.
And just to go with when Steve Kirk was talking about being able to keep people in their homes, I mean, that is certainly the ideal. And I haven't thought much about that, but having additional funds so that we can work on keeping people in their homes versus them becoming homeless makes a lot more sense than waiting for it to just their houses to just fall down around them. So something that I think as a community have to take a look at and figure out what is that need and how many houses are there and what can we do. We have a great volunteer base in this community, as well as financial resources. So something to look at.
I would just add this to John Levy's comment. We understand that challenge at rural neighborhoods. The affordable housing crisis is a crisis. And so as a charitable nonprofit real estate developer, we're challenged to do more. We're challenged to be entrepreneurial. When we're doing housing work, and as I said before, gap financing from a donor to a particular housing project is significantly leveraged. We work within the banking system and others. So the challenge for a group like ours is to be businesslike. It is to be good stewards. It's to have working capital. It's to be able to provide loan guarantees. We work in the same climate in many ways as our for-profit real estate developers. We compete from time to time with them. But when we build a home, particularly a rental unit, its economic life is more than one generation. So we may be making some gains on those numbers, but it's an incredible challenge. And I think that's why we've asked you here today.
I can just also interject here. One way that we're going to work on preventing hunger in our community is by opening up additional food pantries. our goal is to make sure that there is food assistance to anyone that's available in our community. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a Meals of Hope food pantry. It could be any food pantry for the grocery stores, for the families of need. And by having more food pantries, easy access to those food pantries, that's one way that we're going to resolve hunger.
Great. We are approaching 10 a.m. So just to conclude, I would encourage any of you to reach out if you feel compelled to want to help address these needs in Collier County, either to Eileen or myself, anyone on our staff, but also to any of the speakers today and any of the other partners that we're working with to address these needs. And a quick reminder, that we will be hosting one of these every Friday until March 19th. And I have included the topics here. And again, those will coincide with issue papers in the Naples Daily News coming out Friday mornings as well. So make sure you keep a lookout for those. And thank you so much for helping us shed light on these important topics. And we look forward to working with you all to make Collier County the best community that it can be. Eileen, anything to add?
Nope, just want to thank you all for joining us and thank our speakers. We really are humbled and honored in our relationship with all three of them. And we will definitely continue to work with them as time goes on. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.